I'm a producer at Fractal Fox Studios. We're a small independent game studio located here in the DFW area.
I'm Clifton Moog. I'm the lead designer, and I'm actually out of Seattle, Washington.
So we're spread across the US, the team. We all work remotely, and we got started with our first game back in 2008 when Apple opened up the App Store to third-party developers, and we made a little game called Greeble and got it out there, and it did really bad here in the US, but the French loved it, so it worked out pretty well. From there, we went on to make another game called Cat Juggling, which also did poorly in the US, but the Italians loved it, and so that was awesome. And after that, we made Garden to Go, and yet again, it did really bad here in the US, but Canada loved it, so all's well. Then we finally did well here in the US with an educational game that we did for children in order to help them get a better understanding of what to expect on their first trip to the dentist. And that was a really awesome experience for us because most kids were really scared and horrified, because in a lot of kids shows, when you have like their first trip to the dentist, it's always like, you eat too many sweets, we're gonna rip out all the teeth. And so they go to the dentist like freaked out and scared. So we worked with a client, and he was like, even if they have a cavity, we're not doing anything the first time, because that requires surgery, it's a whole other deal, so we just need them to know it's gonna be okay. And they measured the children's like psychiatric ability to stay calm on a scale of a 1 to the 4. 4 being like they're totally cool, like yeah, doc, do whatever, and the 1s to 2s where they were just so frightened that they had to cancel the appointment or like try to work something else out. And after the children played the game, the 1s and the 2s became 3s and 4s, and that was sort of the like aha moment for what?
You said the 1s and the 2s became 3s and 4s.
Yeah, they became calm.
I thought the rating was backwards. My bad.
Listen. Yeah, it's okay. So that was sort of the aha moment for us in the studio to see like games could be this really powerful, cool thing that could make people's lives better. And from there we made our next game, which was Brain and Zombie, and it was focused on like just making people happy and smile and have a wonderful time. And it did pretty good for us.
Except zombies.
Huh?
Except zombies. They have lives too.
So then we went on, and our current game that we're working on that will be out this summer is a sequel to the first game we made, Greeble.
I had a question regarding your recommendation of Unity for cross-platform. Hypothetically, I've chosen Unity as my platform of choice. As I grow my team, what training tools would you recommend for training new developers or new designers to use the Unity framework as the team grows?
Was it E3D we used? Was it E3D?
I think it was E3D.
Yeah. So there's several different websites that have actually fairly robust tutorials that you can check out. We use, I believe it's Eat3D. Eat3D.
Eat3D?
Eat as in I'm going to eat a sandwich, 3D. And they have actually some fantastic tutorials ranging in scope from just literally the developer side to the designer side to the art and the sound, all the disciplines that you're going to run into. Now, the catch with Unity, and the thing I don't like about it, is they don't make their workflow doesn't have a lot of room for separation between design and development. And so, versus say Unreal, where I can just go crazy with all my design stuff that I want to do, and the developers can kind of do their thing, and occasionally we'll meet up in the middle and make stuff link up. With Unity's workflow, it's as a designer, you're doing a lot of coding, flat out, or you're waiting on the programmer to do the coding so that you can move forward. So that would be my one downside to the
Unity also has a lot of really good support documentation on their website. So, and from my experience with reaching out directly to Unity and asking them for help and assistance, they're pretty good about actually responding to if there's any hiccups or stuff that you may have questions on. They're pretty good about getting back with you directly. So, and the nice thing about Unity as well is YouTube is just filled with tutorials on how to figure stuff out.
Yeah, and their forums, in my experience, is actually usually pretty a solid choice for asking for assistance.
So, whenever you're porting over to different platforms, how much code is reusable? I'm sure it varies from game to game, but could you answer it relatively generally?
So with Unity, our experience, it's actually been very little unique code that's had to been done. So typically it's stuff like, on iOS there's only one physical button, which is the home button, but on Android and Windows Phone you have menu buttons and search buttons and other stuff. So coding stuff like that, in addition to if you're wanting to set up an achievement system, or any other stuff that takes direct advantage of native technologies that are inside the program, such as Game Center or Google Game or anything like that. That will require some unique code. But there's a lot of APIs that you can find that if you plug it in, it'll take care of like a lot of that kind of stuff for you, and it's pretty awesome. So actually on that note, and kind of going back to your question, Unity has a thing called the Unity Asset Store. So if you're getting started and say you're an artist and you still want to make games, but your coding skills are kind of then you can go to the Unity Asset Store and see if anyone has anything that's on there that's like sort of close to what it is you're trying to accomplish as far as an API. So it could be really easy to make snap judgments about, like, say I ask someone, hey, where is this thing going to be due? Like, can you get this to me? And they're like, I can't because X. It could be really easy to snap and say like, well, this thing's really important, so you can't go do that other thing. But outside of your project and outside of the game itself, the rest of your team has lives, they have families, they have friends, they have other stuff that impacts them that is, those are the reasons why they're doing this kind of stuff. So being able to look outside of yourself and try to check, like, why are people reacting the way they are? Why are they sad? Why are they happy? And keeping that in mind as far as, like, say, solving conflict or building out your team.
So how many people have ever Googled something and not found what they're looking for? Okay. But so with Google, computer science and all of code, you can pretty much find the answer to any computer science question possible online.
Yes.
You might have to Google for a long time, but you can find it. It's all there. Has anyone heard of the website Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange? Who loves this website?
It's my job. It's like
Yes.
I'm on that website all day.
Yes,
all day. I just live on there.
Fun fact, computer scientists actually just Google everything for all their jobs.
Yes. Commercial Google searches.
Yeah, but no, so there are so many resources online that you can find the answer to any esoteric programming question that you need online. As far as like, let's say that you get stuck on a problem for a while, just start Googling. Start figuring out if somebody else has had that problem.
At another event I was at, a similar group, their programmer was actually giving opposite advice, because what he was saying was, like, he wasn't like dissing Google, but he says it encourages in some programmers copy and paste. And he says that is one of the worst things you can do as a programmer.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will definitely agree with that. This is more of under the assumption that when you are looking at this code and looking at the solution, you're doing your best to understand what's going on before you Control-C, Control-V. Anytime that you literally just say, oh, I don't know what this is, I'll just copy it and paste it, and wow, my code works. That's not going to help you get a job. That's not going to help you in the long run. Control-C, Control-V is okay, so long as you know exactly what's going on. And if somebody said, what does this do? Like, just hand you this function right there, you can tell them just exactly what it does, what each line's for.
It's also too, if that code breaks and you stole it, you're in doo-doo.
Yeah.
Don't copy and paste lots of code. Little snippets. Understand it.
Yeah. All right, and also, don't be afraid to rework your work. We have a specific industry term called refactoring, where basically you go through and rewrite your code to make it cleaner and more legible, more efficient, etc. But also there are certain situations where, while working with a team, features that you write might actually not be used, or things get cut, and you kind of have this whole rolling a boulder up a hill kind of situation. But much like what Cliff said earlier, don't get emotionally attached to your code. Every time that you write code is an experience, and you gain more and more experience from it. There's nothing that you lose by writing extra code and then not being able to use it. You can always pocket that, save it in a Git repository. Some other day you might need that snippet of code. But don't be afraid to rework things. If some piece of your code base makes you unhappy, you should feel free to go back and take the time to refactor that. Make something more efficient, especially within game design. more of like the AAA hardcore end where you're like having to build your own engines. The amount of time that you have to get 60 frames per second is 16 milliseconds in your draw calls. And so every little thing that you do counts. So I'm not saying that, obviously get the design work in first, but if you're having problems with something being really slow or something, just don't be afraid to refactor it, because you'll learn from the experience.
And so art and games, who here is an artist already? Who wants to be an animator? Awesome. Who wants to be a concept artist? I see, were you all three? That's what you really want to do. You want to be able, for an artist, you want to be able to use every single, you want to do traditional art, you want to do digital art, you want to do sculpture, you want to do animation, because each type of art will reflect on the other art. Go ahead. With arts and games, you have the graphics and versus the aesthetics. Most people, when they think of art in a game, they're like, oh, it's the graphics. The graphics are amazing. The graphics look pretty. The style is beautiful. All those words are actually the aesthetics. The graphics itself is the rendering part of the video game. It's the special effects. It's the quality of not the program, but actually of the programming, but also of the hardware that allows the visual aspect of the game to show. So, like light passes, all the passes, well, yeah. With aesthetics, you want to. With aesthetics, it's how the image and the visual art feels to the player. Aesthetics is also not particularly just art. It's also in audio. It's also in design. It's about how the game feels to the player.
It is typically going to be the last puzzle piece, and a lot of times it is going to be the bottom of the totem pole for a budget. So utilizing your time and the people around you really comes into play in a mobile game. So for tip one, naming conventions, I can't stress this enough. Some games can have maybe 10 sounds. Naming conventions won't be that big of a deal. And by naming conventions, I mean if it's a sound effects, do SFX underscore whatever it is. If it's music, music underscore. Ambience. You know, you kind of get the point where I'm going here. Now, if you have a game, say Madden Mobile or something like that, you can have more than 100 samples. Things will get lost, and being able to find these and know where they are and where to place them, super key.
So if you want, you can just send us a private message on Facebook or Twitter, and I can send you the PDF of all this information. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to try to help answer anything that's kind of concerning.